Fucker, I told you I got off at 2.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I get off whenever you want, baby. If you over there racking a gun at me...
So we're gonna have like a sign in or something.
Everybody, it's Tuesday, August 2017, and this is the Fourth and Wrong podcast. You thought we were going to do something different. You were wrong.
Bringing it back old school.
This is what the fuck's happening. I'm your host, RJ. With me is Keith. Say hi, Keith.
Hi, Keith.
Good. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way. That'll be music. It'll be familiar. Maybe we'll replace it at some point. Probably not, because I'm lazy. Dude, we haven't done one of these in a while.
It's been a minute. It's time
to put our podcast bits on. So let's get all character-y, I guess. Is that what we're doing?
Okay. So I need to drink more and yell at Dustin.
Yeah. Just wait. Say something else.
Something else.
I just need to keep talking over you constantly and cutting you off like all the time.
So what are we doing on this new iteration of the old show?
We're not talking about video games. We're talking about
video games.
Sports, specifically football. I have my cool new shirt. This came in like literally 2 days ago. I was pretty happy about it. Shout out 26 Shirts, sponsor us at some point. That would be fantastic. Also start making a Cleveland brand so that Keith can buy shit too.
Also would be nice. Nobody makes Cleveland gear.
Yeah, not even Cleveland.
It's just not something that happens very often.
Tank tops and like gym shorts and shit. It's weird. It's like, wow, you really
it's
think
terrible.
They should have some equipment for the game that they're playing, but they don't. And that's why they get 15 first round picks every year, because they lose like 17 players a year just due to death and general crippledness
and fucking what's the word I'm thinking of?
Weed. It's weed.
Yeah, it's weed. Weed's the word I was thinking of. Definitely weed. Suspensions, that one. We've been without our number one receiver for going on 4 seasons now because he just likes the toke. Whatever.
Nice.
That's fine.
So anyways, the question was, what are we doing on this podcast? We're talking about football.
Absolutely.
It's the Fourth and Wrong podcast. Keith and I are both fans of either mediocre or terrible teams. A lot of our stuff will probably be focused around those teams and or our divisions, but we're going to try and branch out and talk about everything and be non-biased as much as we can. The one nice thing I think about liking kind of shit teams is that it gives us a pretty good perspective on how to be fair to pretty much everyone, because if we can put up with our own bullshit, we can put up with everybody else's.
Absolutely. Except for the Patriots. They can go fuck themselves.
And the Cowboys.
They can fuck themselves. It's one of those interesting perspectives you get in American football when you are such a very avid fan of such mediocrity year in and year out. You really learn how to live with yourself.
Yeah. How to live with yourself, how to live with others.
Yeah.
How to accept failure into your life as your Lord and Savior.
Yeah. I think half the reason why I've been so successful is because I expect failure every year. And so far it's they've delivered. Obviously we got to stay optimistic, but at the same time I also like to stay realistic. If we will try to, throughout the length of the show, we will try to branch out and touch on other teams and stuff. But even if you don't necessarily like football or like the teams we're talking about, there's nothing more entertaining to me than listening to someone have a mental breakdown week in and week out about why their team frustrates them to no fucking end. You want to hear some funny conversations between me and RJ just bitching about how we suck at football, you're gonna get it. That's exactly what you're gonna get.
And I'm really good at just yelling about things.
Absolutely.
I've learned. Or at the very least, Keith keeps laughing at it. So
Yeah, it's funny to me. So
it's good. Good.
yeah.
We're entertaining ourselves.
Yeah.
This podcast is another masturbatory process where we're just.
Absolutely. So let's dive in. I'm going to dive right into a couple of stories, both related to both of our teams. So we're going to start with you, RJ. How do you feel about the whole Sammy Watkins thing, man?
Do we have to?
We have to.
Do we have to do this fucking thing first? How do I feel about the Sammy Watkins thing? Well, let's be more inclusive. Let's talk about both trades that happened because
Sure.
it was Sammy and Ronald Darby.
Yep.
Sammy Watkins traded to the Rams for a second-round pick and a cornerback, drafted in the 6th round, who is injury-prone. So we traded an injury-prone guy for an injury-prone guy, and then Ronald Darby, cornerback, traded to the Eagles for Matthews. I can't remember his first name. It starts with a J.
Yes. Some guy.
Sorry.
Jordan Matthews. Jordan Matthews. Yep.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So traded to the Eagles for Jordan Matthews and a 3rd round pick. Also, we sent a 6th rounder with Sammy.
Yeah, you ditched
to the Rams.
You ditched a late pick.
Yeah. Not a huge deal. We already didn't have our 7th rounder because we traded it last year for some dude whose name I couldn't fucking tell you, and I can pretty much list our entire depth chart most of the time.
Right.
So that shows you how impressive that guy was. There are very few times when I look at the field and I'm like, who wears that number?
Yeah, it's good to. It's definitely good to stay educated on your depth chart, but like this situation, what I feel like is going on is pretty much what Cleveland did last year. You know, ditch the vets, especially the ones you can't stay on the field, and just accumulate draft picks and pretty much try to clean up in the next 2 years with draft picks, you know. But the difference between Cleveland, the big thing I felt like difference between Cleveland and Buffalo doing it is Buffalo seemed like they had a foundation. Cleveland was already at rock bottom. Now, to say that Buffalo had all their pieces together, you know, it's a little bit of an overstatement, but you have, you know, consistency at quarterback. You definitely had consistent running game.
For the most part, yeah.
You know, it's just key
we've,
skill.
We've had a good running game pretty much always.
Sure.
Like I can't tell you the last bad running back we've ever had, going all the way back to like Travis Henry when I first actually started paying attention to the Bills because like my brain had developed enough to have object permanence.
Right. I think it's you know, I think the Bills were much closer to correcting some of their issues with some key skill position players. On the other side of the spectrum with Cleveland, you know, when we did the entire tear down and build back up, you know, even our veterans sucked, you know. So we kept Joe Thomas because why wouldn't you? He's a perennial fucking Pro Bowler. But you know, over the past 2 years, they stripped him down and pretty much accumulated draft picks. What do you think Buffalo's going to try to target in the upcoming drafts, considering they're obviously just accumulating draft picks at this point? You know, what are the key pieces that you think is missing from that roster?
That's a really strong question, and the thing is, we're gonna kind of have to see how the rest of the year plays out. I mean, Tyrod. So taking a step back from this specific situation, I think it's important to recognize that this is the first time, again, pretty much since I can remember. Buddy Nix, Chan Gailey were a head coach GM duo that I believe went out at the same time. So this is the first time the Bills have hit reset in a while. We've gone through a couple head coaches with the same GM, but then the Pikulas bought the team 2 years ago. We still had Doug Whaley, but Doug Whaley worked with the Steelers when Rex was in Baltimore, so they had this was supposed to work out well together, and yada, yada, yada. They got along. I think Doug Whaley is probably the worst thing that's happened to the Bills in a really, really long fucking time. Other than Tom Brady, he's pretty bad. For the Bills. I mean, obviously, he's like the greatest quarterback of all time.
Sure.
But, you know.
Well, your division in general is just it's a ball buster.
It's a shit pile it's a shit pile, and then you've got arguably the best team in the NFL also in it. It's like it's a bum fight, and then the one dude at the top who's just like making it rain on top of the rest of the division, and it's really depressing. Though last year, quick tangent, we did hand the Patriots their first ever shutout loss at Gillette Stadium, even though Tom Brady wasn't there, but I'll fucking take it. Also, Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't, so we were playing as a third string quarterback. Shut up.
Take what you can get, man.
So,
I feel your pain.
Bill Belichick still played that fucking game to the end and like didn't just kneel on the ball. Like he was still trying to put points on the board and win.
Well, yeah,
but,
nobody wants to get shut out at home. Yeah.
So
If they were playing in Buffalo, I could see Belichick going, you know what, let's preserve some energy for next week. Like let's go and wash it on the rug. But nobody fucking gets blown out at home, especially Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
But definitely for
I mean it was 16-0, but we still put a 0 on their side of the board.
Sure.
So I was pretty happy about that. So this is the first time the Bills have really hit the reset button in a long time. They basically brought in the entire like Panthers front office and coaching staff at this point.
Who did a good job with restructuring that franchise to at least be competitive 2 seasons ago. I don't know what the fuck happened last year, but well, I mean I do, but
they got rid of Josh Norman and then they didn't have a defense.
Yeah,
is my understanding.
Well, and Cam Newton's couldn't fucking hit the broadside of a barn all fucking season. Cam Newton last season had like a 56 or 58% accuracy last year.
Jesus.
Yeah, like he was like when you look at the numbers, he was bad last year. And it's really funny. That's that Super Bowl hangover everybody talks about. It's going to be interesting to see if Atlanta, after they lit up the entire year last year, if they suffer the same fate. So that's definitely going to be good football to watch because I don't mind watching Atlanta football. They were entertaining last year.
Right.
But but definitely back to Buffalo. I don't think necessarily pretty much bogarting the rest of Carolina's front office is necessarily a bad thing. They know what they need, obviously, because they're accumulating, or they think they know what they need anyways, because they're accumulating the picks to position themselves in the future. But
so getting back to like what they're actually trying to do, we'll have to see that like there's been some like Reggie Ragland is taking like third team snaps at the moment.
Jeez.
Like. So there's been talk like, hey, maybe he's not there next year. There's talk, Tyrod's in another contract, prove it year like he's been the entire time in Buffalo. And considering he's, I think, actually the most efficient passer in the league, like he only puts up like 20 touchdowns or so in a season, like with his arm, but he also only throws like 6 interceptions and like also doesn't fumble the ball. So the Bills are in this weird place where like the last couple of years with Tyrod and Sammy, we've actually had like a much more dynamic and LaShawn, we've had a much more dynamic offense that's actually putting points up on the board. And for the first time in a long time, it feels like the defense is really the thing that needs to make up the difference.
Sure.
I think we're super deep at linebacker right now. I hope Reggie Ragland turns around and shows up as something. Like I think our front 7 is really solid. We've still got Marcel. We still got Kyle for at least this year. So our front 2 are solid. We drafted Adolphus Washington last year in the 3rd round. I think he's still got a lot of potential to come into his own. A lot of other people don't like him. But if you see that nasty ass spin move out of a defensive tackle, maybe it changes your fucking mind.
Sure.
Because it blew mine.
Right.
So I think he's got a lot of room to grow. Our ends, we've got Jerry Hughes on one side. We just drafted Shaq Lawson, who I thought was a huge bust last year. I mean, Rex was super high on him. His son went to Clemson with Shaq Lawson, so there was a lot of connectivity there. We picked him up super early. Like, dude didn't do the bench press at the combine because his shoulder was a problem, and then he turns around. And either the stories vary, either he actually injured it or he kind of like the story varies between like was the front office protecting him with the injury or did he basically like limp into this injury on his own because he knew his shoulder was fucked up and he didn't want to be pressed into playing. So we lost him for like 7 games.
Sure.
Then he started to look halfway decent. Apparently he's performing really well at camp. So and we're going back to a 4-3 instead of a 3-4, which I think suits us better. Though again, we're super deep at linebacker at this point, so maybe not. where we really need help on defense is still the corners at this point. I think Kevon Seymour is underrated. Dude came out of college with 40/60 vision.
Jeez.
That's not a 40 time. That's like one eye saw this thing and the other eye saw the other.
Yep.
And he didn't know it until basically like his pro day and stuff. So he's still getting used to having eyes that work properly. But I think he's got a lot of potential to expand, to grow. We just drafted Tre'Davious White, who sounds like he's super competent, but I feel like he's a little overrated. We had this shitty situation where it was like the couple of top wide receiver, because we were 9th overall in the draft. It was like the top couple of wide receivers got picked, and then it was like 6 or maybe we were 10. I don't know. Whatever. There were like 3 cornerbacks drafted like right in a row,
Right.
in the top 10, and it was like bang, bang, bang. Here are the picks, and it's like, oh, okay. So basically, we're out of, it was the cornerback class of the wide receiver class from a couple of years ago,
Right.
where it's like, oh, all of these guys are just going, and they're all good, but we're gonna take them now because we don't have a chance later on. And then some team fucking drafted this kid named Peppers, who I was hoping to, maybe pick up.
Yeah, he's been
assholes.
he's been turning out in training camp too. The ninja movements that Cleveland did to get fucking 3 number 1 picks last year. Like I was like when they traded down. Okay, I completely expected them to trade down. I really did. But I expected them to trade down into like Deshaun Watson, I didn't expect them to trade. I didn't expect them to trade down, I expected them to trade down into like Deshaun Watson or something like that because I knew Mitch Trubisky was going to go early. I loved Myles Garrett, but I figured Cleveland was just going to do the Cleveland thing, and trade away and wait for a better quarterback class. But Hugh Jackson, being the brilliant mind he is, was just like, well, Cody Kessler isn't half bad, and now we got. We got Kevin Hogan. He has legs. Can't do much else, but he has legs. Let's see what's available later. Let's go ahead and take Myles Garrett. We're in a position where we just have to take the best player on the board whenever we get a pick, because we need help everywhere.
And Myles Garrett fucking borderline seems like he could be one of those generational, just like he's. I mean, fuck it, you did it twice. Like he's the LeBron of the NFL, where it's like have you seen this dude?
Yeah.
Like guys that big shouldn't be that fast.
Yeah, nobody that's 280 pounds with like 15% body fat should be able to run a 4.6, 4.7. Like the dude is fucking quick.
It's like remember when Jadeveon Clowney was coming out?
Yeah.
And people were like, "Oh, he's the thing," and then he got injured. It feels like Myles Garrett is like Myles Garrett is the hold my beer.
Right. Let me show you something real quick.
Of that shit.
Yeah. He's and he's been showing out in training camp, and the start during the Browns' scrimmage. He had 2, because obviously you don't hit the quarterbacks during team-on-team scrimmages. He had 2 quote-unquote recorded sacks, but there were like 5 that they didn't whistle because they wanted to see the play develop. Because there was nobody that could contain him, and I was like, well, Cleveland's still trying to figure out their offensive line. He's also getting reps against number 2s and number 3s. But then the preseason game happened. He either got 1 or didn't get any recorded sacks during that preseason game. But almost every single play, he was in that quarterback's face. He had like for just the 1 quarter he played, he had like 12 hurries. Yep. And it was.
So let's reel it back real quick. Congratulations on drafting 2 starting players in the first round. You fucking piece of shit. We could have also used help.
Maybe 3 if David Njoku can stay healthy.
Yeah. On the offensive side, we need fucking wide receivers.
Sure.
Guess what? We've got 3 slot wide receivers. They're all pretty talented.
Yeah.
But, it's like Jordan Matthews apparently had some knee thing from last year, so we're trading an injured wide receiver for an injured wide receiver. I think Ronald Darby is easily better than EJ Gaines. EJ Gaines has another season in the league, but I think tore an ACL or something. So,
Gross.
like, in roughly the same amount of time played, they've got equivalent stats, but Darby's a year younger, was almost the defensive rookie of the year.
Right.
Um, and I, I think the thing I said about Darby was him coming into the league, he was a better, or at least more consistent cornerback than Stephon Gilmore. Also, rest in peace, Stephon Gilmore, except don't fucking die in a dumpster fire. And I'm looking forward to the pass interference calls and the free yards when we play the Patriots twice a year. So thanks for that.
Yep. Of course, it'll be Belichick that's just suddenly turns him into like a perennial, and then didn't really do you any good. But I mean, you're always been adamant that Stephon Gilmore is substantially more overrated than people.
He's crazy. He does some impressive stuff. Guess what? He's also like he's a zero clutch player. Like he's on automatic because you can't shift between these gears because there is no clutch there.
Sure.
So, and I'm not going to stop saying that. We probably need a little bit of help. I mean, we either need a little bit of help or are super deep at running back, depending on how things go. I'm actually disappointed that we lost Mike Gillislee also to the Patriots.
Right.
He's the guy that I'm more concerned about doing bad things to us. But again, he's got to get through our front seven, and I think we're okay there.
Sure.
But yeah, we need wide receivers. We still need a consistent tight end to step up. I think the Bills legitimately drafted Nathan Peterman in, I believe, the 5th round, like to be the future quarterback, and I think he's got potential there. So, once Tyrod's out of the picture one way or another, and I bet it won't be because his career ends, I bet it'll be because we just don't re-sign him at some point. I think Peterman's the next step.
Okay.
And our offensive line still needs some amount of work, though it seems like we've done some good things there, but we've got some dudes that are getting old.
Yeah.
So
well, that was the biggest benefit of having Tyrod is he can really expand the pocket. He wasn't the most accurate passer, but when he gets legs under him, he's a weapon, and he could expand the pocket and still be a relatively strong threat in the short game. And if the short game's not there, he'll just wheel it out. Take it in himself if he needs to.
I guess to answer the first half of the question from 20 minutes ago, we need help at wide receiver, tight end, mostly on the offense and in our defensive secondary. How I feel about the trades in general, I think Darby was a weird trade. I think we downgraded in both spots, and we're building for the future.
No, I agree.
I'm honestly at this point more upset about the Darby half of the trade because I think he was healthy and contributed. Sammy was like a weird liability. We didn't sign him for his 5th-year option anyways. There's the potential that we just might not have had him after this year anyways, so get some value for him.
Sure.
And, unfortunately, he's the wideout that got injured, and it just extra sucks that we traded up to get him when we could have gotten, like Mike Evans or Odell Beckham Jr. or fucking anybody else who came out of that class. To be fair, the year that DeAndre Hopkins got drafted, we drafted EJ Manuel, and we could have had him too. So, fucking,
No, it happens.
Let's see what this front office does with the draft next year. I'm excited to have 2 picks in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round. That gives us a lot of capital to work with. And again, I told you it could be a situation where the Bills, like Cleveland this last year, have 3 first-round picks by the time it's all said and done.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think I agree with you on pretty much every point. Sammy Watkins, injuries aside, he was easily the most dangerous offensive weapon Buffalo had.
Like we got to figure out what we're doing there because we also we don't have our starting 3 wide receivers from last year.
Right.
Sammy's in LA now, also with Robert Woods. So the Rams just basically took half of our receiving core.
Yeah, if he can.
To be fair, the Eagles keeps taking our defense. So.
And if Sammy can stay healthy, that's a good thing for Jared Goff because now he has somebody to fucking throw it to.
Yeah, great. I'm so happy for him. I really hope Sammy gets healthy and has a breakout year this year. Yeah, super awesome.
As he pours a drink.
Shut up. but yeah, I guess that's it. Let's what's next? What's next on the docket? You got other fucking things that rip my heart out, or what are we going with now?
No, I mean the only thing I really have on the docket is was the
I'm gonna actually pull up a football website.
Right. Yeah. No, I have them all in front of me. I came prepared. Mostly just talking about the Buffalo thing, 'cause that's a big deal. How about recently, it was actually today, Roger Goodell, in his infinite wisdom, has pretty much confirmed that Josh Gordon's reinstatement isn't even remotely close to being considered by the NFL. And he pretty much stated, it's not even on the desk, and if it is, it hasn't gotten to me yet. And it's
not on my desk.
Yeah.
It's not in the office. It's not in the building.
And
I don't think it's been written down on paper yet.
everybody last year, when Hugh Jackson, in so many words, said, we're moving on from Josh Gordon, everybody kept telling me, that's it for Josh Gordon, blah, blah, blah. I talked to my other friends that speak football, and they'd be like, he pretty much said they're done with Josh Gordon. It's like, no, hold on. They said they're moving on. He's indefinitely suspended, so they can't play him. So why the fuck are they going to worry about him? Let him do his thing. Let him what he needs to do. And Jimmy Haslam has pretty much come out and said, if he gets reinstated, they'll welcome him back to the team, because you do not ignore that talent. The dude's only 26 years old. He hasn't played a regular season game since 2013, but that was the year, he led the league in receiving yards with 1,600. The dude was, pretty much, on that marquee. There will forever be a Cleveland player on, the top 10 receiving yards list, at least for the foreseeable future. Yeah, the foreseeable future.
A long time.
So obviously they're not going to turn away that talent. It just frustrates me that Josh Gordon is being. I mean, last year was kind of a slip up. He got reinstated, played the preseason, and then right when we were, we knew he had a 4-game suspension. He could play the preseason, but he had a 4-game suspension for the regular season. Cool, wait out the 4-game suspension. Literally the week before he was going to be allowed to play in the regular season, the week of his return game would have been the game against the Patriots.
Right.
And what does he do? He fucking admits himself to a rehab facility and gets himself resuspended because that violates the wellness policy.
Wow, really?
I was fucking pissed.
committing yourself to a rehab center causes you.
Yeah.
That's fucking.
Evidently, that was an admission of guilt. Got him resuspended. I don't know. I do believe there was a test that he did pop hot on. So I'm frustrated on both courts. A, that the NFL is still arbitrarily. Well, I mean, obviously it's illegal in the United States, so the NFL is going to follow suit. But the entire arbitrary fucking abolition.
I don't know. I've been parts of the United States where it's not.
Well, sure, yeah. But
and might be in a week. Shout out Mag West.
One of those places is not Cleveland, Ohio, or Berea, Ohio. So,
Bingo bango.
So they're, they take a hard stance on it, and the arbitrary abolitionism in the United States of marijuana, especially at the medical level, that's an entirely different conversation.
That's the 420 and Wrong podcast,
right? The part that fucking irritates me the most is the fact that Josh Gordon, after being suspended indefinitely, was pretty much handed his job back with only a 4-game suspension, and you can't fucking clean yourself up for that. Like, I understand. Life choices and blah, blah, blah. We've all been there. But, like, it's, as a fan, it's so frustrating to see so much talent just consistently sat on the sideline, to where Cleveland has openly said, hey, if this dude gets reinstated, we'll fucking play him.
Yeah, I mean...
When that happens, fucking...
Johnny Manziel was supposed to be the greatest of all time, but...
Look, I was really excited about him for a minute.
I'll be perfectly honest with you. Yes, this is shit talking, obviously, but, I wanted sort of to draft him when he was coming out of college, so...
I was surprised he went as late as he did.
He had the hype train around him.
Yeah.
To be fair, I also wanted to draft Tim Tebow when he came out of college. You know why? Because Buffalo, before Tyrod, hasn't had a real quarterback in fucking years.
Well, yeah, DJ.
So, No, I'm sticking with what I said before.
What about that other?
I'm glad EJ and Marshawn can hang out on the Raiders, and Robert and Sammy can hang out on the Rams, and they can all have their like fucking West Coast hangout. We used to be Bills party.
Yeah, especially the Marshawn thing. I bet you that fucking tans you up all the time.
It's the worst move the Bills front office has ever made.
Well, because, I mean, correct me if I'm
Period.
wrong. Marshawn's stats with the Bills weren't terrible.
No, they were good. It was
Yeah.
it was literally the origin of beast mode.
Yeah.
Like that's where that whole brand and it's on my list of things that I want to talk about is him coming back. But I don't want to cut off what we were talking about before.
Sure. No, that'll definitely come up.
Beast mode started in Buffalo, and I thought about jacking his logo and just turning it into Buffalo made.
Right.
But
Yeah, I mean, I got the numbers in front of me. His first season with Buffalo, only started 13 games, only played 13 games, rushed for 1,100 yards.
that's stupid.
Yeah, that's really
you
dumb.
Rush for 11. You should get there are running backs who don't break 1,000 yards and they play every single down.
Right. And
he was that was his rookie year.
That was his rookie year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that was his rookie year when he came in. And in 2008, literally his follow up. He played 15, started 15, and rushed for 1,036. That's still very respectable. The big thing that jumps out at me with the stat is his average per attempt. He was hitting 4 yards per attempt. Those are kind of important numbers.
Efficiency.
And then when he breaks out in that big, breakout run, then he does his, runs 56-yard touchdowns when he's slow as shit, but nobody can catch him because they're afraid he'll break their necks.
I mean, beast mode is literally the most appropriate thing for him because it's just like, okay, well, he's not shady. He's not the shiftiest dude. He's not Mike Gillislee. He's not the fastest dude. Like, he's not gonna break your ankles. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, he is, but it's gonna be because because he steps on them,
right?
And you fucking fucked up and tried to stop him. Like, that man is a freight train.
Yeah. And what
he'll carry four people into an end zone.
Oh, absolutely.
That run against the Saints will be a top 10 highlight in NFL history.
Absolutely.
For the next 50 years.
Yeah. And what kills me is on his
that will be played when he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. Also, I'm saying Marshawn Lynch is a Hall of Famer.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of all of his seasons, I think he's played 7 or 8 seasons in the NFL technically. Only 3 of them he's rushed for less than 1,000 yards, and that was either due to suspension or injury. In 2010 in 2010 I believe it was, he rolled his ankle, fucked his ankle up pretty bad, and that's when the Bills were like, you know what, he's had some discipline issues with us. Let's go ahead and cut the ties. His first full season with Seattle rushes for 1,200 yards.
Yeah. So go ahead and do me a favor and look up what we traded him for. Go look at it.
Oh man, I bet you it's sad. Let me bring that up real quick.
Because I know what it is, and it's the reason I say it's the worst move that they've ever made.
For a fourth round pick in 2011 and a conditional pick for 2012 that became a 5th round. That sucks. You didn't even
beast mode.
You didn't even get any players for him?
We traded that.
You didn't even get any players for him.
No.
Oh God.
4th rounder.
Yep. And now
Marshawn Lynch is infinitely more not infinite. Marshawn Lynch is more valuable than the Sammy Watkins trade, and we got out way better on that end.
Oh, absolutely. Jesus, dude. That sucks.
The Ronald Darby trade we didn't get as much for, and I don't give a fuck if we got players out of both of those.
Right, yeah. Oh, that's terrible. Every time beast mode comes up in conversation, and like especially in conversations we're having together, I can't remember I can't. I don't know what your front office was doing for whatever they thought that may or may not be a good idea. I can never remember in recent history, anyways, a team that, and you may, but I sure don't. I can't remember a team that has literally shit the bed like that on a trade. Um, even with the injury season and the suspension season, like how can you not put him, even if you want to trade him, how can you put him on the block without some value to his name, considering he just previously had 3 Pro Bowl seasons with you, and he's only played 5 seasons. So, fucking you're at a 3-to-5 ratio. That is more than 50% of the time he's going to get you 1,000 yards.
So, remember that other thing I said where I said Doug Whaley is the worst thing to ever happen to Buffalo?
Was he part of that? Oh, yeah. Good.
I'm pretty... No, it was before him. That might have been Chan Gailey. Either way, those... Buddy Nix, sorry. He was the GM, not Chan Gailey.
Yep.
Dude,
Either way, fuck him.
I'm waiting for this to suddenly get popular so that other people from Buffalo are, screaming at me, but I know that's not ever going to happen because we're us, so...
We might get popular with our friends again. It happened good last time.
I don't think I was popular with my friends when we were friends, so I'm not too worried about it.
Hey, I like you. I'm still here.
Yes, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yep.
But
that's obviously we've hit a huge tangent from the original conversation, which was about Josh Gordon. But
hold on. Let's jump back to Josh Gordon in a second, but let's just finish this out because I did want to talk about it.
Sure.
How do you feel about Marshawn Lynch coming back into the league now?
I am fucking hype. He had a short season last year, because he was
He didn't
injured.
have a short season. He was out last year. He was retired last year.
Not last year, year before. His last season he played in the NFL. He was injured.
His last season he played in the NFL was when they lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Is that a short season?
Yeah, that was. I think he only played 6 or 7 games. He was able to come back for the postseason. Yeah.
What, was he injured or something?
He was injured. Yeah.
Okay.
He had a sports hernia, I believe. So that was when they started.
I totally knew that. We're experts on football.
But that's when that was the season Thomas Rawls took a lot of his snaps because he missed half the season. And Thomas Rawls, did okay. So he definitely didn't lose them games, and they made it to the playoffs or whatever. I'm beyond stoked. For 2 reasons. Because he's coming back to play for the Raiders. It's his hometown.
Yes. Yeah.
It's his
Oakland.
Yeah, it's his hometown, and it's right before the Raiders get shipped off to Las Vegas.
Which is why he did it.
Right, because he one last chance to bring a championship to Oakland. Represent for Oakland. So number 2 is because Marshawn Lynch is the kind of football player I love to watch.
Yep.
I am so glad that the NFL is kind of being a little more lenient with celebrations and allowing personality back into the sport. Because
I wanted to talk about that at some point
because
too.
I don't watch football to watch, just the sport. It's entertainment. It's characters.
Do you think Marshawn Lynch will be able to, under the new celebration rules, dive backwards into an end zone while grabbing his nuts?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But
do you think Marshawn Lynch in this season will dive backwards into an end zone while grabbing his nuts?
Absolutely. He's going to take that fine. He is going to take that fine. His first season back in the NFL, especially if he's doing well, fuck it, dude. Grab your nuts all day, beast mode. I'll be here rooting for you. I'll throw some goddamn Skittles at the TV just for you.
Hell yes.
Yeah, but I'm beyond stoked on it, man. I love Marshawn Lynch. I think especially watching him when he hit the podium, I'm just here so I don't get fined. Literally the funniest thing I've ever seen on NFL programming in my entire fucking life.
He is one of the rare actual personalities.
Yeah.
I think it's like when I think of them, it's Ocho Cinco, it's T.O., it's oh God, who's the guy that played with the Eagles for forever, and now is with the Redskins, the wide receiver?
Oh shit.
Yeah, that guy.
Deshaun
Again, we're
Jackson.
experts on that. That's
Yeah,
yes.
he actually
Deshaun
he
Jackson,
actually
I
plays for
think.
Tampa now. So
Oh, really?
yeah, he got
Okay.
traded
I think
or
he's I
released.
think
One of the
he's
two.
a real personality.
Sure.
So apparently it's a lot of wideouts, but
Yeah.
they've been classically known as divas.
I mean, yeah,
But
th-
but
they're the
you know,
highlight reel.
Marshawn is just fun
Hmm.
to watch as an individual. On
Absolutely.
top of the fact that he's an incredible athlete in the NFL.
Absolutely. Yeah. And and even his style of play is entertaining to me because I love watching like people like Shady and stuff, where they can cut and really break somebody's ankles. But when somebody like Marshawn Lynch, when they get a hold of the ball and they lower a shoulder and you try to hit that man, there is nothing more football than watching a grown man make another grown man his bitch.
It's one of those things where it's like Marshawn has that Jerome Bettis like fullback something in him, but is still quick. Like he'll still every once in a while shuffle his feet real quick, and you'll pause, and then he'll be like, Shady will shuffle his feet to get around you. Marshawn will shuffle his feet so that you reset, so that he can just blow right through your chest.
His lateral movement is just quick enough to where he can take you off your center. He's not going to go around you, though. He's going to lower the shoulder. As soon as you're off your center and he lowers that shoulder, you're going to the ground. You're not going to be able to tackle him. That was like the infamous fucking New Orleans Saints run.
Exactly, yes.
When he's bowling through the initial defenders, when he's getting through that front seven, and then he just breaks down the secondary when they're trying to play catch up with him.
Just keeps going.
Yeah,
keeps going.
and
he
the
breaks like seven.
Yeah, breaks like seven, and you
run.
never see his legs stop churning. You never see him stop moving left to right as well as north and south. To keep people off their center, as long as he's keeping his legs churning and he has some lateral movement to where you can't get your balance and really wrap him up. The only way to be able to tackle Marshawn Lynch is to square up on him in a moment for which he cannot adjust for you. The moment
and good luck, because if you're not an offensive lineman or a linebacker,
yeah.
cornerback's not going to stop him.
He's going to punish you. Whoever tries to tackle him is going to be punished.
Or if it's the first play of the game, you might stop him, but by the fifth time he plows you into the ground, you're going to be like, I don't know if I want to tackle this guy anymore.
Yeah, and that was another big marquee thing about Lynch's career is when you tackle him, he's a fall forward back. Even if you stuff him at the line, he's getting 2 yards. He will.
Yeah.
And he punishes people. Anybody that gets in front of him, he's going to punish you, and he's going to get every yard he can out of you. And usually that is always going to be for a gain. The only time you ever saw Marshawn Lynch legitimately stopped is the few times where they utilized him for fucking silly screen passes or something. Just something to vary up the offense. Which Seattle honestly really didn't do that much, because when they wanted to do something shifty out of the backfield, they just let Russell Wilson do it. He's fucking 5'11", quick as shit. And
so when I asked you if you were going to break my heart with anything else, the answer was yes.
What was that? The Marshawn Lynch thing.
After the Sammy,
talking about Marshawn Lynch
after Sammy and Darby.
Well, I'm a heartbreaker. That's what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We could do an entire podcast just on Marshawn Lynch
absolutely.
And how fucking silly he is. And I would love to do that, because if I could somehow meet Marshawn Lynch and get him to show up on the podcast and say, I'm only on 4th and wrong so I don't get fined.
That's how we know we made it.
That's the new stinger / bomb drop.
Yep.
But anyways, we're Josh Gordon.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So let's bring it all the way back like we usually do.
Yep.
Let's unpack this fucking box that we put 16 more Russian nesting dolls into.
Yeah, bringing it all back. The Marshawn Lynch thing was more of an example of why a team could abandon a perennial player like Marshawn Lynch for injuries and disciplinary issues, but Cleveland is adamant about going. When he comes back, we'll play him. But I'm just frustrated as a fan because I just don't know when the fuck he's going to come back. I want him back now.
Sorry. One more quick Marshawn Lynch thing. Did you know that he did a swimming race with Kyle Williams of our defensive line?
No. Did he win?
I think Kyle won, actually.
I could see that.
But there's video on the internet. I think it might only be, well, it's probably not only on BuffaloBills.com.
Sure.
But yeah, there's video of Marshawn. It's Yeah, we gonna have a swimming race, yo. Kyle. Also, it wasn't Kyle.
It was Cal.
Also, he corrected other people on that pronunciation. He's like, nah, that's Kyle.
Yeah, that's something Marshawn Lynch would
I
do.
love Marshawn.
Yeah. Oh, he's
I love
amazing.
Marshawn Lynch.
I'm so-
All right, anyways, Josh,
yeah.
let's talk about him. Let's talk about Cleveland some, and not just my team.
Okay. Well, what do you want to know?
Well, I mean, did you have anything else to say on that? I mean,
No, it's pretty much just venting my frustration on Josh Gordon. He's
okay.
He's a skill player that we can't use, and it's frustrating, especially because we have like fucking okay. So this does kind of lead into something else.
Here we go. Got him wound up.
Terrell
you
Pryor.
Also, you got kind of quiet on my side.
Terrell Pryor is a fucking asshole.
There it is.
Terrell Pryor frustrates the shit out of me, and here's why. Because Cleveland offered him a multi-year deal for several $1 million, and he said no. Okay, he wants to test the free market. The only people that have seen your value is Cleveland, because this is your first full year as a receiver. The best deal you're going to get is from us, but that's fine. You can walk away from the team that made you. And Washington pretty much offered him. They offered him a 1 year make or break contract for the same guaranteed money that 1 year in Cleveland would have been on that multi-year contract. It's frustrating because Terrell Pryor was probably the only piece of consistency besides Joe Thomas that we had last year. Our secondary was inconsistent. Joe Hayden was consistently injured. Our linebackers were not productive. Emmanuel Ogbah and Carl Nassib were pretty much the only ones on the defensive line that were doing anything completely disruptive. So the defense was doing okay, but the offense was just flaccid. And Terrell Pryor, and to a lesser extent Isaiah Crowell, offered a sense of stability. And, we offered him good money, and he pretty much just took the same deal without the guarantee of him being able to keep his job at the end of the season. With Washington.
Well, how much money is truly guaranteed in the NFL these days?
True, yeah. I mean, at any point in time, we could have just cut him and took the cap hit because Cleveland has so much cap space right now. But
it's super weird that the most injury prone league is the one where it's like, yeah, also no guaranteed. I mean, I guess that's why it's no guaranteed money for the most part.
They're not going to pay you to sit on the bench and collect a check. Like, that's not going to happen.
Well, I don't know. Let me tell you about the other thing that makes me super angry about Buffalo real quick, which is the fact that our head coach before Rex, Doug Marrone, went and cut bait after Ralph Wilson died to go join the Jaguars, and then we had to pay him for another year.
Yeah, guaranteed money.
He had a clause.
Yeah.
He had a clause in his contract that if ownership changed, I think this was what it was. If ownership changed, he would still get paid for that year. So fuck him into the ground for all time and forever, because you also helped draft E.J. Manuel. So
dickhead, stick us with that dud, and then bail whenever the money's right.
That was his quarterback.
Oh yeah. But back to the Cleveland thing. Obviously, we had to go out and look for another big-bodied receiver.
Piece of shit.
We had to go and look out for another big-bodied receiver. So we went out and looked for somebody that had similar production, but on a budget. And so Kenny Britt stumbled into our lap. Kenny Britt has good measurables.
I heard. I've heard his name before, so that means something.
He was LA's number 2.
Unless you're JaVale McGee, in which case
he's pretty much who LA substituted with Sammy Watkins. They picked up Sammy Watkins because they needed another big weapon threat. Kenny Britt used to be that threat, but Kenny Britt wanted more money, and LA was just like, no. So Cleveland was like, fuck yeah, we'll pay you. You're a former. I think he played in the number 2 spot with LA, but he had over 1,000 yards receiving and like 6 touchdowns on the year. It's not no numbers to scoff at, nothing incredible, but he was a relatively productive receiver.
No numbers to scoff at.
Yeah. especially with the quarterback situation in LA. He was relatively productive. So we picked him up. We still have Corey Coleman going out as our number one. Hopefully, we get a full season out of him this year. But Corey
I honestly
Coleman.
thought you were going to shut me down on that joke.
No, that's a good joke.
I was waiting for the hard no, and then it didn't come.
No, it was a good joke. I liked it. I can dig puns, man. We have Cleveland going out, or Corey Coleman going out as the number one still. Corey Coleman, as far as the physicality of the dude and his playmaking ability, a lot, especially Football Outsiders actually specifically compared Corey Coleman to Odell Beckham. Because literally Odell Beckham is the only player in the league right now at the receiver position that has the same measurables as Corey Coleman. He's quick. He's smaller. He's about 5'11", but he's quick. You can move him all over the field to create mismatches. He can play the outside. He can play the slot. You can put him in the backfield, and he can run the wildcat. So you can do things with him.
Real quick, did you see the training camp Hail Mary pass that Brandon Tate caught for the Bills?
Yes, I did. Because I have the Bills. I have the Bills as one of my favorite teams on the internet, so they send me like their highlight videos and shit from like training camp and preseason.
Dude, yeah. So when I say Nathan Peterman might be the future, that was a pass from him to Tate, and then Tate did his Odell. Obviously it's only training camp.
Yeah, Odell impression. Got up and hooked it up.
Also, if you just look at that video, that spiral's tight.
Yeah. Did you see Deshaun Kaiser's 56-yard touchdown in an actual football game?
I did not.
Yeah. Deshaun Kaiser is everything that I hope Johnny Manziel would have been. And he got to showcase his arm in that preseason game. Dude has a cannon. He has some accuracy issues, but he's not afraid to play vertically, which is good because neither is Hugh Jackson. So I feel like they mesh relatively well. He has some accuracy things that they're dealing with, but he's a rookie. He was drafted in the second round. The reason why he was knocked down to the second round was because of those accuracy issues. But almost every single analyst had Deshaun Kaiser as the most talented quarterback in the draft, the most ready to play ready quarterback. No, but definitely the most the higher. He has the highest ceiling in the draft. Especially in relation to the three that went before him. Mahomes, has a fucking cannon for an arm, but we'll see how much he plays, considering, they're asking... What?
Do you know where that Mahomes draft pick came from?
The Bills.
That was our trade down.
Yep. Mahomes...
Which is why we have 2 first rounds picks next year.
Yeah, but Mahomes has the disadvantage that he's competing against Alex Smith for a starting spot. Alex Smith is starting next year. That's or this year. That's just a thing that's going to happen. Mitch Trubisky and Deshaun Watson, on the other hand, they both went into real. Deshaun Watson is currently filling the role that our current quarterback used to fill, because we're stuck with Brock Osweiler on a $12 million contract.
Oh God, I had totally forgotten about that. That should be somewhere in my notes.
Yeah, we're grooming him we're grooming him to start right now, RJ. they have pretty much Joe.
I'm sorry. You're grooming a third-year player who started on 2 different teams to start.
Yep, that's the way it was worded. Is they're grooming him to start.
Congratulations on getting 2 first-round draft picks on the defensive side. They'll actually help.
Right?
I don't know about.
Yeah. Brock Osweiler. I have mixed feelings about him right now.
Go to town.
Because he has done very well in training camp. He was very okay to mediocre in that first preseason game. Now, maybe it was jitters. It's still preseason, whatever.
This man has been a starting quarterback for 2 different NFL teams.
I'm aware. You do realize the performance he gave last year with one of those teams. It wasn't the best in the world.
And we're talking about preseason?
Yeah.
Let me do my best AI. We're talking about preseason?
when we first got him on that trade, I thought we were literally just eating his contract for another second round pick, which for me was smart because that just pretty much means we bought a second round pick. Because they wanted him gone so bad because A, he was bad last year, B, he was eating up a lot of cap space that they gave us him and a second round pick just to eat his contract. And then
I was gonna say, what did you guys get? Like, or what did you guys give?
I think
Was it nothing?
I think we gave just draft picks. Let me.
But like low number.
Yeah, no, low number draft picks. Yeah. No, we didn't give anything prolific for him. Trust me, we didn't want him like that. The biggest thing.
So you're saying you did the opposite of a Marshawn trade?
Pretty much. We gave them a fourth round compensatory.
Cut my veins open.
We gave them a fourth round compensatory pick, and
Oh, so exactly a Marshawn trade, except for a way less talented player.
Yep.
Oh, almost like that makes sense.
Right. And Cleveland actually got something of value if Brock doesn't work out because we got a second round pick. And we can always sit back on our laurels of the fact that DeShone Kizer is doing so well that Brock doesn't have to be permanent. Cody Kessler is going to be a perennial backup in the NFL. DeShone Kizer has the physicality and the talent to be a starter at some point. I just don't know how patient Cleveland's going to be with him because we are notoriously bad about pushing quarterbacks before they're ready to start.
I would be curious to know what Brock Osweiler's guaranteed money is because, I mean, Cleveland could just pull another cut bait with him, potentially.
Yeah, I know with it's $37 million guaranteed over 4 years. It was a $72 million contract over 4 years with incentives and shit. I know if he plays the regular season this year, we owe him $12 million out of pocket.
Starts the whole season?
If he makes it past preseason without being cut, he's owed his $12 million.
That's a really expensive backup.
Yep. So that's what I said once. The moment Hugh Jackson was just like, well, he's part of the team, so we're going to treat him like part of the team, I was like, they're going to start Brock Osweiler because there is no way they're going to let $12 million sit on the fucking bench. They're going to see what happens this season. We have DeShone Kizer in the back, as our number 2. Well, right now he's technically number 3, but he's quote unquote the future of the franchise. We have DeShone Kizer sitting on the bench right now. Groom him under Brock Osweiler, who is quote unquote a veteran quarterback, and Cody Kessler, who is a quote unquote veteran in this system. And then 2-3 years, DeShone Kizer is going to be starting. I don't care what the fuck they say. He's shown me. enough.
Absolutely.
He's shown me enough to where they're going to get his money's worth from him before his rookie contract runs out. You have 4 years to do it. In 2 years, DeShone Kizer is starting. Calling it right now. Bam.
Okay.
Whatever happens.
I will mark the date.
Whatever happens between now and then, but fucking who knows? I don't know what the fuck's going on at the quarterback position with Cleveland. I do know what's kind of happening everywhere else. We have, probably one of the best 1 and 2 combos at defensive end with Myles Garrett and Emmanuel Ogbah.
I was going to say, I broke down my team, so go on yours.
We have probably one of the best 1 and 2 combos at defensive end with Emmanuel Ogbah and Myles Garrett. Fucking Jabril Peppers is doing very well in camp. Yeah, he's doing Jabril Peppers, doing very well in camp.
Listen, so only one of us wanted to draft him, the other one just got him.
Right, we just kind of stumbled into it. We got lucky and were able to get a marquee quarterback in the second round because, his draft value dropped so much because of his quote-unquote accuracy issues. David Njoku is a fucking freak at tight end. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to play that preseason game because he got the wind knocked out of him in camp, so they were resting him. We got rid of Gary Barnidge shortly after drafting him, so obviously he's going to start. We ditched Demario Davis back to the Jets after we traded for him from the Jets. The Jets were like, yeah, we'll take him back. It's cool. He was actually kind of productive with you guys, so why'd we get rid of him in the first place?
Dude, and then, my favorite low key player in the league is back with the Bills.
Who dat?
because he has the best name.
Who dat?
Bakari Rambo.
Bakari Rim.
He's a safety. He was with us for a couple years, and I thought he was actually decent. And now he's back with the Bills again.
That's awesome.
So at least for now, training camp ain't over yet.
Oh sure.
We've got a preseason game in 3 hours, and I'm looking forward to watching it.
Sure. Yeah.
Also, official timestamp. It's 4 on October the 17th. So
on a Tuesday.
Yes, on a Tuesday. Because every day is a Tuesday with my podcast.
Every day is a Tuesday on these podcasts. At running back we have Isaiah Crowell, who's pretty much like he's like Matt Forte light. Not the fastest dude in the world, but if he gets a shoulder down on you, he's pretty dangerous, and he has decent hands. Duke Johnson is his number 2. Duke Johnson is like a fucking Swiss Army knife. I would not be surprised if we line up Duke Johnson in the slot.
No, he's a Swiss Farmy knife.
A Swiss Farmy. We did a lot of.
He gonna till those fields.
We did a lot of tweaking with the offensive line. We got some big signs. We got J.C. Treader from Green Bay. And then we were able to pick up, in the same week, we got Kevin Zeitler from Cincinnati, who is, a perennial fucking all-pro guard. So the offensive line might actually be a fucking thing. Biggest thing on the docket as far as, Cleveland's roster is the fact that we were able to re-sign Jamie Collins to a extended contract after New England, for some reason, was just like, yeah, you can have him. Whatever.
They typically know what they're doing with their cuts.
Yeah.
Which is really unfortunate.
Yeah.
I wish they knew less what.
But I'll take a fucking Patriots reject all fucking day. Because even the Patriots rejects are still fucking good. I mean, Jamie Collins went to a fucking Pro Bowl. He had a slightly he didn't even make it through half the season last year. He was just unproductive for like 4 games. So New England was just like, you know what, fuck it. And they did great for us. We have Christian Kirksey, who's always in the fucking Pro Bowl talk. He hasn't made a Pro Bowl in a while. The biggest questions I have is
I'd take the Bennett tight end off of the Patriots.
Oh yeah.
That's a real mean dude right there.
Absolutely. The biggest question marks in Cleveland right now is really at the cornerback position. Joe Hayden, we got to see if he's healthy. Brian Body Calhoun, still young.
Tell me about Jordan Poyer, because he's the one dude we got from you guys. So here's the crossover.
Oh, Jordan Poyer. Poyer, I never had an issue with him as far as his play.
That was a long pause.
Cleveland's never had good safeties.
Great.
The biggest thing with Jordan Poyer is like we got him off of waivers in like 2013 or some shit like that. He's more, even though he's a free safety, I think he fits better in a strong safety position because he's more of a tackling safety. I
think that might be where we're putting him.
Yeah, because I think he has like he's been in the NFL since 2013. He has single-digit pass deflections and only 2 interceptions, I believe. But he has over 120 tackles, so he can hit and he can wrap people up. I think he would fit
over 120 total. That doesn't seem like a big number for a safety.
Well, it may not be. But as far as a free safety,
I mean, well, I just for that number of years, it seems like a low number.
Yeah. Well, you also got to remember that he was placed on injury reserve last year. He missed. He missed like 10 games last year. Because he had
another one of those.
Yeah, he had a kidney lack. His kidney exploded when he got hit one day. So he had to go get.
Yes, yeah. I did hear about that.
He had to go get surgery, and then we pretty much benched him for the rest of the season, put him on the IR list. And then after his contract expired, we cut him. We let him
Oh.
go to let him go to free agency, and then the Bills picked him up.
So I have one more thing. At the start of this, we laid out a lot of our like resignations against teams.
Sure.
At this point, I don't hate the Miami Dolphins because we both suck. But
Hey, they made
Jarvis Landry.
the
forever.
playoffs last year. Can you say the
I'm
same?
gonna say this again. Fuck Jarvis Landry forever.
Oh, from almost killing your dude.
Yeah, the out of nowhere blindside hit that basically ended Aaron Williams' career. You know, one of our safeties, that position that we now need help at. Fuck him forever. So
Well, that seems kind of excessive.
no, no.
No, just fuck him forever.
Okay. Aaron Williams in the second week, like a couple years ago,
Sure.
had his neck injured to the point where he was paralyzed and was carted off the field. And then this dude comes across with a shitty block, and I mean,
Murdered
honestly,
him. Yeah. No, I saw the video.
He damn near almost literally killed that man again.
Yep.
So fuck Jarvis Landry forever. And you know, this is episode 0, so we're airing grievances.
Yeah. Well, as long as we're airing grievances, I mean, I don't really have any because the AFC North is actually kind of like not as impressive as it used to be. So I remember back when I always had the linchpin. Like I could always just be like, well, you know, Cleveland plays in the AFC North, so of course it's hard schedule for us. But now it's just like, who do we have? Pittsburgh. That's about it.
The linchpin plays for Oakland now.
All right. Oh, back to the bad jokes. Stop it.
Yeah, I mean, it's my stock and trade.
Yeah. But you know, anyways, like back to the breakdown of the Cleveland's roster. We have foundation. I'm not expecting great things this season. I'm expecting more wins than last season. But you know, we have foundation. We still have a. Go ahead.
Go on. Sorry.
We still have a plethora of draft picks in 2018 to continue building. I just hope that Jimmy Haslam just kind of just keeps going. Hey, I kind of like Hugh Jackson's direction we're going, and doesn't fire him at the end of the season. That is notorious for Cleveland to do. After every 2 seasons with a coach, we get a new one. Hugh Jackson's the first coach we've had in a while that I actually really, 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 really like.
Top 3 needs for Cleveland.
Top 3 needs. Quarterback. Got to sort out the quarterback problem.
That's one.
Yep, that's one. Secondary. Mostly a compliment for Joe Hayden if he can stay healthy. Because Joe Hayden Joe Hayden's obviously our number 1. Has been for years. Had some injury issues last year, so he wasn't as productive. We'll see how he does this year, but we need a compliment for him. Brian Body Calhoun is good, but he's still young. He had some. He was more of like he had highlights last year, and less of he was consistent.
I'm sorry. Does that guy have a nickname already?
No, his last name is Body Calhoun. He hyphenated. I think he hyphenated his mom's name and his dad's name to like give them both reference or something like that. I don't fucking know. Yeah.
It's honestly funny because it's the closest thing that sounds to "He Hate Me." As
oh, we're going to XFL. Are we going to talk about XFL on the Fourth and Wrong podcast?
It's football, isn't it?
It is football.
The other thing is, you know, I still can't get over HaHa Clinton Dix.
No, HaHa Clinton Dix is the best. It is the best. Like who? Like, is HaHa his real first name? I don't think it is.
It is.
I think
no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It's what his like grandmother called him.
Right.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah. I think we had that conversation before. I think his name's like Hashan or something like that.
Yeah.
And
something like that.
And a family member always called him HaHa. I think the other big thing.
Don't get called HaHa if your last name includes the word Dix, though.
Right. Absolutely. It's a bad look. I think it's too early to tell for my number three. It's too early to tell because we've made some corrections. If you were to ask me this question midseason last year, I would tell you we need to sort out the offensive line. But we've had some pretty
Okay.
big marquee signings in this offseason. So when more preseason comes and then regular season starts, we'll see if I go back to, hey, we need to protect our fucking quarterback because that's kind of important.
Right.
But I would say the
Yeah,
big number
I mean,
three.
generally, he's the guy who, I don't know, gets the ball after the snap most of the time.
Right. I'd say the big number three right now is a toss-up between the offensive line and sorting out what we're doing at wide receiver. Because Corey Coleman has to stay healthy. He missed a lot of games last year because he broke his hand, and then he got injured in training camp this year when he fell on the ball and knocked the wind out of him. So we sat him for some practices. He's taken some bad hits. He's not injury prone. He's just playing aggressive football, which we need him to stop.
Hold on. You remember that time that the Bills had Kevin Cobb and then he slipped on a bath mat? And
Yeah,
then we didn't
yeah.
have Kevin Cobb
Yeah, I do.
as a quarterback anymore?
Yeah, I do. So
Welcome to the Bills.
But with Corey Coleman and Kenny Brent, we have a number one and number two. Those roles may flip-flop throughout the season. The biggest problem I see at wide receiver is we don't have any consistency with the 3 and 4 position. We don't have a defined slot. Corey Coleman and Duke Johnson move around a lot to create the mismatches. I would just like more consistency overarching to just be able to utilize mismatches without having to adjust the game plan. Which happens. Good coaches do it. Adjust the game plan for whatever's working. But like our third, fourth, and fifth receivers are just bad. They're just not good. Ricardo Lewis is okay. The rest of them just aren't that good. Like Richard Mullaney had really good plays this last preseason game, but he was playing against the number 3 team for the secondary against the Saints. So try not to stay too optimistic after that preseason showing because he looked really good, but he was also playing people that probably won't be on an NFL team by the time regular season starts. So I think the big three, definitely quarterback, secondary, and a toss-up between offensive line and wide receivers.
Okay. Do we have anything else we want to... I have a couple other things we want to talk about. Do you have anything else that's newsworthy?
Nah, man, go for it if you got something.
Okay. I definitely said that, like, some of these things would be like, oh, well, we can talk about these things for whenever. Let's start off with, where do you think we end up this season? And again, this is, it's episode 0 is what I'm calling this. So we're going to largely talk about our teams. Where do you think the Browns and the Bills end up this season? Divisionally, just in general.
I'll start with the Bills, since we just got done talking about Cleveland. The Bills.
No, start with you because I think it's an easier transition. But whatever.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna give my opinion on the Bills shortly. It's gonna be a short opinion on the Bills because obviously you probably know your division better than I do, and then I'll move on to Cleveland. But just to give my short summation of how I feel like that division is gonna be. I think you're definitely not going to be last. Because
have you seen the Jets roster?
Yeah, because you have the Jets to do that for you. God, the Jets at this point are
rip Greg Falk.
Yeah, rip Greg Falk. Jesus, the Jets are easily going to be the worst team in the AFC, if not the league. And I'm saying that with Cleveland being in the AFC as well.
Yeah.
I feel like obviously this opinion will evolve as the preseason continues. I think you guys would have a strong chance to fight for that number 2 slot against Miami. And depending on how
Miami doesn't have Tannehill, right?
Yeah, Miami without Tannehill. Tannehill's not the best quarterback in the world, but he provided that team with consistency. And so, Tannehill being injured obviously puts the Bills one step closer to really trying to nail that number 2 spot. And depending on how the AFC goes, I could easily see the Bills, as long as they're playing consistently, I can see them easily competing for a wild card spot. Would I expect that? Would I expect that towards the end of preseason, depending on what I see? Probably not. But at where I'm looking at right now, I could make that argument. I could.
I was with you until you said wild card spot.
Well, I mean, if you look at the AFC right now, like the AFC is full of a bunch of just like really like buff marquee teams, and everybody else is just like piddling around in the middle ground. Especially considering one of the fact that the biggest crutch for you guys right now is the fact that Patriots are in your fucking division.
Yep.
Because once again, we're at the beginning of the season and we're having the fucking conversation about whether or not the Patriots are going to go undefeated this year. Because they have just amassed
and it's
the
exactly
team.
That is we're not going to win the division.
Absolutely
until
not.
Tom Brady retires.
Absolutely. Which is also questionable considering on how good fucking Garoppolo looks.
We shut up. We also have to be concerned about basically the rest of the AFC at that point.
Right.
Or we need to be concerned about the second best AFC teams in every division.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's where the Bills are going to get most of their conflict this season is playing the AFC, not worrying about their division. Because I mean, you're not going to if you guys lose to the Jets, I will disown you as a friend.
Well, you better not, because we've got more podcasts to make.
True. Yeah.
But,
well, I can hate you during them.
what I can say is, do you know what the Bills' schedule looks like?
I do not. Is it hard? You guys have a hard schedule?
It's kind of hard. But you know where 2/3 of our divisional games are?
Home.
Not home. Well, okay. Do you know when 2/3 of our divisional games are?
In the winter?
We play the Patriots and the Dolphins twice in 5 weeks. You know what weeks those are?
What's that?
The last ones.
Hell yeah. It's going to be snowy. Is that at home? Like in Buffalo?
No, it's all of them. No.
Fuck yeah.
4 divisional games in the last 5 weeks.
That's kind of rough.
We play the Patriots and the Dolphins, and I think there's a break and then there's like the Colts are in there somewhere, and then we play the Patriots and the Dolphins again. Like, we don't play them until week 11 or 12.
Right. Yeah, we actually open up the season with divisional rivals. They're kind of spread out. They're sprinkled all through the season.
Oh no! We open up the year with the Jets, and we played them twice, and then they were like, "Hey, you want to play the rest of your division? Go fuck yourself."
Yeah, yeah. I think we only have 2 division games the last week, or the last 4 weeks.
That must be nice.
Yeah, it's pretty all right. But as far as the Bills go, like I said, they're not competing. They're not going to be competing for the AFC East. It's just not going to happen.
I think we have a solid shot at number 2 in the division.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean that we're going to get a wild card spot.
Right. You got to beat the rest of the AFC for that.
Exactly.
As far as Cleveland goes, I think we have a definite shot of not being last, and that's pretty much it. Like, with the downslide, Baltimore's making some moves right now, but with the downslide that Cincinnati and Baltimore have had over the past 2 seasons, I'm aiming for 500,
Sorry, go on.
I'm aiming for 500, and 500 would mean we weren't last.
Yeah. And Cincinnati seemed like they were on this real push with Andy Dalton and AJ Green, and then it just didn't fully materialize or metastasize or...
Well, you know who they lost last season?
Who's that?
Their offensive coordinator, Hugh Jackson. He's our head coach. All that fancy stuff that Hugh was having them do. Like, Andy Dalton was running the fucking option, for Christ's sake. Like, Hugh Jackson's not afraid to experiment with the offense, and now they're without Hugh Jackson, and they were grooming Hugh Jackson to be the successor for head coach because they were expecting their head coach to retire. Well, when he didn't retire, he was just like, well, I'm gonna go look for a head coaching job because there's teams hiring, and Cleveland was like, fuck yeah, like we play you twice a year, we've seen your offense, we're comfortable with having your offense on board. I think that, and that's one of the reassuring factors for me when I say stuff like Hugh Jackson is one of the better offensive minds in the league. Is if you look at that transition between Hugh Jackson offense in 2015, no Hugh Jackson in 2016, there was a huge drop off in Cincinnati. It didn't help anything that AJ Green didn't play the whole season. Um, being injured will do that. But that
Tends
was
to.
yeah, but that was still a very talented offense. There's no reason why they should have piddled the way they did. I mean, it's a shame, but when you tear your hamstring. By the way, that was during the Bills, I think, when he tore his hamstring. Bills won that game, I believe. Yeah,
It was, and I think it was also like one of literally the first plays of the game.
yeah, and that put
Because
him out.
I remember that being a very injury riddled game where it's just like this guy's out and that guy's out and that guy's out and
Yep.
this guy's out, and it wasn't even like, oh, that dude got blasted and that's why he's on the sideline.
Yep.
It's just like
Mhm.
like
But
the normal tit for tat, or I turned my thing the wrong way and we're all fucking dead.
sure, and what interesting about AJ Green though, since he came up though, is if you look at his numbers from last year, even though the offense on a whole wasn't super productive, um, like the running game was not nearly as prolific as it used to be in 2015. But in 2016, even though AJ Green missed 5 games, when he was injured, it was week 11. He missed 5 games. I'm still 100%. I'm pretty confident that he still had like 960 something yards receiving or some ridiculous number like that
Mm-hmm.
in 11 games. Um,
Well, I mean, if
or it was
Marshawn
like
can have 1,100 rushing in 13, then
right, yeah. I think he had full like I think he only played 10 full games and he had almost 1,000 yards receiving. AJ Green's another one of those receivers that's just a fucking freak athlete. I've seen him
yep.
pull catches on my Browns that have fucking frustrated me to no fucking end. Like there was this one like stupid like tip drill catch that he caught on his like ass or something in the end zone during a Cleveland Cincinnati game, and we were actually doing well, and that pretty much completely derailed the entire game because it killed all morale because we didn't have receivers like that.
So if we're bringing back recent Detroit receivers, I hope the Bills convince Megatron to come back.
Oh, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. Megatron,
That's my dream reach.
I would love to see Calvin Johnson play again. I think it's a shame that he retired so early. I get it. I mean, he's in control of his own career, but at the same time, he has so much fucking left in the tank, man.
I mean, the beast in the West versus the beast in the East.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that would be great if like they both came back for like the same season. Like if Calvin Johnson was just like, fuck it, I still got like 2 or 3 seasons left in me. I mean, fuck, he like literally it wasn't what 4 years ago, 5 years ago that he had almost 2,000 receiving yards. Like he's
Yeah.
he's only 31. Like he might not have like the quickness he had 5 years ago, but he's 6'5", 230 pounds. He's a big body receiver that can get up and get the ball. Um, and retiring as early as he did, like it sucked, especially because he'll never have that ring on his finger.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of those players that deserved to be on a championship team because
he'll definitely get a ring on his finger playing for the Bills.
absolutely he should play for the Bills and totally get that ring, RJ, because that's what's gonna happen. Bills notorious for blowing fucking consecutive Super Bowls. I had to take one more
What?
stab.
No, never.
I had to take one more stab at you.
Also, I don't know if you heard this at the beginning of this, but fuck the Cowboys. Just, you know,
Yeah, they kind of ruined that one for you.
twice. You know what I like to laugh at Joey about?
Was that?
The fact that the Eagles are the only AFC East team that hasn't taken a Super Bowl from the Bills.
Were the Eagles in the AFC East at one point?
Yeah, I mean I'm sorry, NFC. I'm sorry, NFC
Okay.
East. Fuck, I have to go back and. Hey, do you know what I like to laugh at Joey about?
What's that?
The fact that the Eagles are the only team in the NFC East. Fuck, I'm just gonna leave all that in there.
Okay.
It's episode 0.
We're winging it.
Get ready for the bits, people.
Yep.
Because apparently that's the new internet thing, is everything's a bit.
Yeah.
And I fucking hate that phrase.
So before we wrap it up, I want your quick thoughts on Ezekiel Elliott, since we're talking about the NFC East.
Zeke is sidelined for 6 weeks.
Yep.
That's,
6-game suspension for conduct policy.
Yeah, that's a big fucking deal. My thoughts on it? Fuck the Cowboys.
My thoughts on it is I don't know what took the NFL so long, and I don't feel like the NFL owes us an explanation. There's a lot of conversation about, like, you know, the NFL playing judge, jury, and executioner in the aspect of, is he guilty or is he not guilty of what he was accused of. That's not what I see. What I see with Ezekiel Elliott is the fact that there was some issues with domestic violence. He continued contact with that female for months.
Weird. I ain't never heard about a running back beating the hell out of somebody he claims to love before.
Yeah.
Ray Rice.
Yeah.
Wait, what? No, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
How's your division doing, by the way?
I feel like Zeke continuing to behave the way he did, and associate with these people of less than reputable character. The NFL shouldn't be about, hey, he did this thing. No, the NFL, especially the players union and all that fun stuff, should be like, hey, we need to protect the image of the NFL. If a player's behavior is a detriment to the integrity of the Shield, they should be within their power, or it should be within their power, which it is, to reprimand said player to maintain the integrity of the organization. And I feel like, especially in Ezekiel Elliott's case, because they have let people off in the past so light in similar situations, 6 games I think is completely justified. I don't think they should have to answer for what they did, which everybody's asking questions, and then people are challenging the character of the material witness, the one that was so quote-unquote accused quote-unquote abused, because she was threatening to expose a sex tape of her and Zeke and sell it. And stuff like that. So they're like, well, she's of poor moral fiber and blah, 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 but that doesn't matter. What matters is he associated with characters like that. That speaks volumes to why he should be suspended, because he's still associated with this individual even after becoming an NFL star. And now he is representing the brand. If you are losing the company money, they're going to punish you for it. There are people that are not in Zeke's corner right now because he's seen as a woman, as an abusive individual. Whether or not he did it aside, it's the same. Like, if I were to, say for instance, my full-time job is I'm an EMT. If I am charged with a DUI and I get my license suspended, I lose my job. Yep. It doesn't matter if I beat it later and I'm not convicted. I still lose my job. Because I cannot perform my job and I cannot represent an organization. I can't represent my organization with the highest values of morality or the highest, moral fiber. And they can't be employing, quote unquote, drunkards as EMTs, or people that make a habit of getting caught in a situation. Whether or not I did it is, it's not even part of the conversation. It's the fact that I was in a situation for which I was charged for a DUI, and I put them in a position where they had to respond to it. So the NFL doesn't need to justify whether or not, he's guilty or not guilty. He poorly represented the NFL. Punish him for it. That's what they're doing. If somehow he gets this appeal through and he starts playing games again, I'm going to be very upset. Not just because I hate the Cowboys, but because the NFL is consistently either punishing players when they're not supposed to be punished, or lightening the load on punishment on players because they file an arbitrary appeal process. Why the fuck are they?
Basically, it's one of those situations where you're talking like, all right, again, getting right back to your team. Josh Gordon's out. Mm-hmm. Ezekiel Elliott can appeal an abuse charge. Like, he was abusing a person, not a substance.
Right. Yeah, and it's a weird, and it speaks volumes. And obviously, this is going to come up in a later episode because it's bound to, especially if it keeps happening the way it does. It speaks.
Especially if we actually plan episodes, which would be theoretically nice.
Yeah, it speaks volumes to the culture shift in the NFL, for which they're willing to punish morality, but they're not willing to punish the criminals. Josh Gordon was never convicted of anything. He never broke the law. They chose to punish him. Same thing with Zeke. But Zeke was accused of abusing a person. Josh Gordon was, smoking pot. If we take it to a purely moral character, we can talk about whether or not you believe it's blackballing or not. We can have a conversation at a later date about what's going on with Colin Kaepernick. Where
I wish the Bills would pick up Colin Kaepernick in a second, because you know what? All I'll say right here is I 100% support Colin Kaepernick.
Absolutely, I do too. I'm completely in his court, and I want it to be said. I am willing to field arguments from both sides because I see the arguments from both sides. But at the end of the day, with his stat line, you cannot tell me that he does not deserve to be on an NFL team. That's where that argument is for me. He does not deserve to not be on an NFL team. Whether or not people sign him, that's their prerogative. But when talking about, the previous conversation with Zeke in relation to Colin Kaepernick, so there's some kind of relevance between the two. Colin Kaepernick is, in my opinion, being blackballed by the owners in the NFL because they're afraid that he's going to lose them. He's going to lose them money because, a lot of people don't agree with what he did, which is fine. People don't have to agree. That's the magic of the United States of America. He had the right to do it. They have the right to not like the fact that he did it. Great. The problem is the NFL is a money machine. If teams aren't making money, they're not going to want to sign him. And, he will turn away fans if they sign him. So they are blackballing him. But these same teams...
I don't think he turns away fans in all markets.
Definitely not in all markets. But I do feel like, we are allowing players... Like, one of the biggest things that cracked me up was when Ray Lewis finally came out and spoke on the whole Colin Kaepernick situation. Ray Lewis, in so many words, said, hey, just, you did it, it's done, but, use the field as your pedestal, as your platform, just keep your mouth shut and do your job kind of thing. Ray Lewis said that. Ray Lewis was charged with murder.
I was going to say, Ray the murderer Lewis.
Right. We have people like, Ray Lewis plays in the NFL. Adrian Peterson plays in the NFL. Adrian Peterson, he abused his child, whether or not you think it was abuse or not. But that's what he was, he was fucking charged with child abuse. He plays in the NFL. We have people that are acquitted or accused of all these violent crimes and stuff like that are playing in the NFL, but somebody that chooses to use the NFL as a platform for a peaceful protest, he can't play in the NFL because he's losing the NFL some fucking money.
Baltimore's got a real piss poor history with, players named Ray.
Yep. Well, their piss poor history with players named Ray and their piss poor history with keeping criminals on the team. I thought he was a shoo-in when they were talking to Colin Kaepernick.
What I'm saying is, it's the same thing.
Well, yeah, it's definitely going to be the same thing to certain demographics of people.
No. What I'm saying is I don't care if your last name is Lewis or Rice. You did something wrong.
No, yeah, absolutely. No, you broke the law. You know,
And it's why I honestly think the best place for Colin Kaepernick is the Buffalo Bills. I would love to see him in a jersey. I would buy that jersey, and it'd be nice to know that we had a legitimate backup quarterback that wasn't T.J. Yates.
Yep. And what kills me is when people talk about when people like after I pretty much bulldoze the argument of disrespecting the flag and shit like that, and they're just like, well, he wasn't even that good of a quarterback anyways. It's like, do you even know his stats from last season?
Yeah, yeah.
He a still currently today is I think number 10 on career quarterback rating list in the NFL. Colin Kaepernick last year with limited starts because he was not the starter on that team for the entire season.
Yep.
With limited starts, he was able to make a very, very solid case that he could be at least a backup in the league. I mean, fuck, dude. He threw for.
Also, do you want to talk about the number one team in the league that is perfectly suited for? We have a mobile quarterback. Oh shit, we have a backup mobile quarterback.
The Bills.
It's the Bills. The Bills.
Well, I mean, last year, Colin Kaepernick. I pulled up the numbers to make sure I wasn't misspeaking. Colin Kaepernick officially started in 11 games last year, threw for 2,200 yards, 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Had a couple hundred yards rushing as well, and it's astounding to me when people. Now, granted, his accuracy was a little bit questionable. He threw for 59%, which is not terrible.
Less than ideal.
It's less than ideal. But but to say, he can get out of the pocket, he can make some plays. He's still a decent quarterback. The reason why he's not on a team is dumb. It's bullshit. And I feel like that it shows a really. I feel like there's a shift in the NFL to where they are starting to more actively punish people in the NFL that are doing bad things because there's such a strong public outcry. But the culture shift needs to start shifting towards, allowing people to, utilize the freedoms that, they're instilled as being an American citizen. It was a peaceful protest. It wasn't fucking hurting anybody. You can make the same argument of, well, it's not accurately representing the brand. So all those same arguments I just made against Ezekiel Elliott come back into play.
The brand keeps changing. They went from like celebrations are the devil to do whatever you want, and now they're also bringing back like player cleats, like my cleats, my cause. I think is what it's called, or something like that.
Some shit like that, yeah.
So, it's Goodell backpedaling, and the Kaepernick thing is a bigger problem that exists in America, but that's not for this podcast to delve into.
Yeah, we'll definitely elaborate at some point. If it comes up again in conversation. Honestly, the Kaepernick argument's been kind of driven to death at this point. People aren't going to yield on their opinion. It's just not going to happen.
I want him on the Bills. That's my opinion.
Yeah, my opinion is I want him to play for a fucking team. We can end on that.
I want him on the Bills. He'd be an incredible backup for Tyrod. Nathan Peterman can learn what he's doing before he becomes the savior of Buffalo.
Bills Super Bowl 2022.
Right before my election date.
Yep, absolutely. And then the year after, RJ for president, and then they can visit you in the White House.
Hell, motherfucking. Okay, well, I mean, we're damn near 2 hours into this part of the recording, which is damn near where most of our shit goes. I've got a game to try and watch in like 2 hours.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch that Tampa Bay game.
So I mean, what's our game plan? Hopefully this is a weekly thing.
Oh, it's definitely my plan is definitely gonna be a weekly thing. My schedule's flexible, so.
So if anybody gets mad, it's Keith's fault.
It's usually my fault, anyways.
I I was thinking about making this an hourly podcast, but we've almost taken 2 to do this first one, so that seems infeasible.
Yeah, it might
Also,
be.
That's a joke. Also, that's a joke. So like, get ready for this kind of stupid ass humor. If you've heard us on the Slash Blade podcast, you know that this is coming. We try and have a good time, and also if for some again dumbass reason this actually gets popular and you want us to talk about video games again, let us know.
Yeah, we might squeeze that in.
We might be like, hey, I heard that XCOM expansion is real good, even though it's not out yet, I don't think.
I don't know.
Or like, hey, video games are good.
Back to football.
Yeah, get back to the fucking nerds. Anyways, I think get back to the football. Excuse me, as I back away from the microphone. Let me do this real quick before we sign out. Get back to the football, you fucking nerds! And I'll just, I'll save that for the future for when I need it. Did that come across well? Did that play?
No, that was glorious. It came out exactly the way you imagined it.
Oh, amazing. Okay, I mean, this has been the Fourth and Run podcast, episode 0. I would usually dump on some dude, but he's not here because he's not a part of this. Maybe he will be at some point. But say goodbye, Keith.
Goodbye, Keith.